It's your boy Anime Princess, and wow, it's already day 5 of the league. Time sure flies. For the first 3 days, we put out update videos that went over how to get through the relatively early stages of the endgame and how to get some cheap upgrades both defensively and offensively. And then for day 4, I switched things up and talked about how to get some aspirational levels of defenses. So we went over Timeless Jewel, Aegis Aurora as some really expensive options to make your character much more survivable. Today, I'm going to be doing the same thing, but for our damage. And these changes are mostly going to be focused on ways we can improve our 6th link because to be honest, the 6th link I suggest you start off with is not really the optimal damage links for Spark. We have Spark supported by Pierce, increased critical damage, Spell Echo, Inspiration, and increased critical strikes. So today I'm going to be going over how we can upgrade our gear so we can drop Pierce as well as increase critical strikes in favor of some higher damage multipliers from gems such as Pinpoint, Awakened added lightning damage, Hypothermia. There are some higher damage links out there if we have the gear to support it. All right, so first off, we need to craft the DPS Body Armor. Now, there is a crafting guide on the channel. It's in the playlist. And what this is going to do is it's going to provide us a lot of damage from the frenzy charges on hit through the suffix mod. And it's also going to give us base 2% crit chance. And this is going to help offset the crit we lose from dropping increased critical strikes, which gives us 2% base crit chance as well as a bunch of critical strike chance. Now, this will not be able to do it alone. You are also going to have to get a Bottled Faith. You can either drop it from yourself from the Cortex fight, or you can buy one. And when you combine both of these together, you should have enough to offset any loss from increased critical strike support. So we basically get a whole damage link for free, and also we get frenzy charges, which is another boost of damage. This is going to skyrocket your damage. It's by far the easiest way to truly multiply your hit damage. Now, the second thing we're going to talk about is how to remove Pierce support. Pierce support gives us around 20% more multiplier to our damage, which is fairly low. However, it also gives us Pierce, which is very important for our build. So I'm going to be going over some clusters you can use to get the Pierce needed to drop this, as well as we have a video on the channel going over how to craft some gloves, which give us +2 Pierce, as well as a bunch of extra damage. And this is another piece of gear that is going to help us drop Pierce support for a much higher damage support. And by fixing up our 6th link like this, we are going to be able to scale our damage a lot higher. Now, the final thing we are going to talk about is how to craft the perfect wand. And actually, there's really not much to say. There's a crafting guide on the channel. It goes over everything. Generally mid-league, it costs 10 to 20 div to craft this wand. But right now, I think maybe Harvest Juice is a little bit cheaper, so you might be able to get a slight discount. All right, let's just jump into the game so I can show you the upgrades. Let's start off by looking at the Frenzy on Hit plus Spell Crit Body Armor. So what this Body Armor is going to give us is up to 2% to the base critical strike chance, as well as 10% chance to gain a Frenzy Charge on hit. We can compare this to increased critical strike support, which gives us as well 2% to base critical strike chance. However, it also gives us a 137% increase to critical strike chance. So the Body Armor alone is not making up for all the crit. However, Bottled Faith is giving me 136% increased critical strike chance against enemies on Consecrated Ground. And we are putting Consecrated Ground under enemies through our Zealotry aura, as well as Bottled Faith will also put Consecrated Ground under enemies. So this, coupled with the Body Armor, completely makes up for increased critical strike support, unless we put on something like Awakened added lightning damage support, which is fairly cheap and it's a massive power increase. If you want to get a numerical representation of this power increase, we can just look at my POB. This is my character with increased critical strikes taken off for these substitutes. Right now I'm at 2.57, and To simulate this, we can simply just remove the body armor to get rid of the base crit. And also we're going to have to go in the config and take off the frenzy charges, because frenzy charges add a lot as well. It's not just the base crit. Now we're down to 1.7. So 1.7 all the way back up to 2.5. That's almost a 50% damage increase. 2.57 divided by 1.73. Yeah, it's like 49%. Now, obviously, it might be a little bit less depending on how you're geared. I'm not even crit chance capped. However, this is so much more damage that, you know, I'm at 91% right now. I'll try and work my way up to 100, but even at 91%, this is just so much more damage. So let that just show you how far you can scale simply by making changes like this. For the body armor, there's a crafting guide on the channel. So let's look at the playlist. You scroll down, armor crafting guide, frenzy on hit plus spell crit. Tons of people who are brand new to the game have learned crafting through this guide. I think this is a pretty good guide. So even if you're new and you feel like this is really intimidating, you know, I would venture in and try your best, you know, just watch the video maybe twice, watch it as you're crafting so you don't make any mistakes. You could opt to buy it on trade, because there are going to be tons of Spark players who are just churning out these armors, because every time you craft it, it's a little different. You might get a better one, you might get a bad one, and they're going to keep the best one and sell off the rest. So if you really don't want to dabble in crafting, you can just buy one on the market. But I would suggest, like, from what people have told me who've crafted it as their first crafting item, most of them they're so happy they learned how to craft. They're really cherish this body armor. This is the biggest way to do much more damage. You know, again, this is not too expensive. As for the Cortex flask, I farmed my own. It's a drop from Cortex. Cortex is the boss isn't too bad for us, although you might just want to shell out 2 divines and just buy the flask straight up like that. That's another option. Body armor, the cost of this is going to vary. I would expect it to be under 10 div. I'd say it's closer to 5 to 6, although you can obviously watch the crafting guide and just price check the materials, because I do go over exactly what materials you need for crafting it. So, you know, at the time you're watching this, maybe more, it may be less. Not too sure. All right, the next step to improving DPS is actually something we haven't done on our character yet. Probably something I should be doing because it's relatively cheap to do. It is replacing pierce support with a higher damage support, likely hypothermia or pinpoint. Now, to do this, we do need to get some pierce on our character. Pierce support gives us 4 pierce. I'd say bare minimum, you want to have 2 pierce. Then you can swap, and likely you're going to want to keep scaling pierce till you have 3 or 4 anyways. So the easiest way to do this is simply by getting a medium cluster that has aerodynamics. There will be a trade link in the description. You're going to want to have one that has either 4 to 5 passive skills. 6 passive skills is garbage. And if you want to craft this yourself, make sure the item level is 68 or higher. And to craft this, you're going to use fossils in a 2-socket resonator. There are 2 ways to do it. They're both equally likely to hit. The first one is etheric with shuddering, and the next one is serrated with shuddering. So whichever one of those is cheaper, you can use. I think it takes around 18 tries to hit, so it's not too easy, although that is assuming you get the perfect aerodynamics with streamlined. However, you will still probably hit aerodynamics with one of the other modifiers. And to be honest, most of these ones are pretty good, so you could hit like eye for an eye. You could also hit, what does mine have? Repeater. So aerodynamics, eye for an eye, aerodynamics, repeater. Those are also perfectly good. So you will probably save money if you do craft it. However, the link's going to be in the description. That's going to give you 2 pierce if you use 2 of these. And the way to get more pierce would be through a crafting guide on the channel. Now, you scroll down, budget weapon pierce gloves. It's right in here. This video goes over some things from last league, and then it ends with the pierce gloves craft. This is what you're going to want to watch. Now let's look at these gloves. So we're getting 1 pierce in the implicit. We're also crafting a pierce. This is a prefix craft. However, These gloves also take it a step further, and we get a bunch of increased damage against chilled enemies, and we are chilling everything with the Call of the Brotherhoods anyways. So this is just a really good pair of gloves. Highly advise this craft. Now, why haven't I done this on my character yet? The gloves I'm using just have so much armor. Maybe I should swap and craft those gloves, although I think a lot of you guys are crafting it, so it's a little bit more expensive than it normally is to craft these pierce gloves. So this is what I'm using for now. But yeah, that is how you would scale your damage further. And if you want to see the impact of this, we can just demo this in POB. So let's look. All right. I got to put my pierce back on. All right, so my character with pierce, again, it is 2.57. So let's just round that up to 2.6 million. If we take off pierce for hypothermia, we go up to 2.76. So it's like a little bit of a damage boost. However, the real damage comes from pinpoint. So let's put pinpoint on. With pinpoint, we go up to 3.2. And so 2.6 to 3.2, what is that? That's like a 23% increase for me. However, there is a small downside to pinpoint, and that is when you do pinpoint, you need to grab +1 to maximum intensity on the caster mastery, so we can no longer open chest automatically unless you get another caster mastery. The closest one would be right here, which we may in fact do at some point, but I'm not doing it right now. So if you don't get this +1 intensity, you still get damage actually. We go from 2.6 to almost 2.9, so regardless what you do, pinpoint is going to be more damage. And by the way, to configure this pinpoint, you're going to need to go to number of intensity and set it to 4. Although actually, if you unspec it on the tree, it can see and it knows you aren't at 4. So, you know, like 3 to 4 won't change anything unless you actually grab the intensity there. So yeah, these are two really big damage upgrades. These multipliers stack on top of each other. So, you know, like as I've been preaching throughout the whole series, incremental upgrades compound. And these are just two massive upgrades that are going to make all your incremental upgrades compound even more. Yeah, those are the first two upgrades you should do. All right, now the third and final DPS upgrade I'm going to recommend to you guys is, surprise, surprise, another crafting video on my channel. If there's a really good DPS upgrade, I'm going to teach you guys how to do it, which is, you know, scroll down to the Perfect Spark Wand. And this is going to show you guys how to craft a wand with 6 perfect modifiers. Again, it says 10 to 20 div budget. People were crafting this yesterday, and I think they're spending a lot less because the crafting materials are cheaper on a league start. However, this won't be that cheap because baseline, you do have to use actual divine orbs on your crafting bench to craft this. So there's a limit to how cheap this can get. I wouldn't expect to spend under 5 div. I think 10 div would honestly be fine even at this stage, but you know, I don't know the math. This might be a little bit cheaper at this point. So it's just a 6-minute video. It's a fairly short video going over how to get the wand, and this is what we have at the end. We have T1 spell damage, T1 flat lightning damage to spells, +1 to level of our spark skill gem. We have projectile speed, and then this one's going to vary. Mine has cast speed, yours might have crit multi, it might have double damage. There's a bunch of things you can get here. It's sort of RNG. In the final one, it's not fire damage over time multiplier. You just craft on. It's hidden here, but like if you watch the video, I don't know. It's a good mod. I think I craft crit multi. So yeah, that wraps it up. Those are the 3 ways you should be scaling your character with investment to truly hit high DPS levels. These are all self-craftable. They are accessible to everyone who has the bare baseline of currency. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. I look forward to seeing you guys live on stream. I should be live as this goes up. Yeah, I'll catch you in the next video. All right, peace.